Welcome to another edition of webinar series on MBA Rendezvous, which we conduct with academic leaders and industry veterans. As futurist and philosopher, Alvin Toffler once wrote, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." Today, there is no end to education. It is not that you just read a book, pass an examination, and finish with education. Your whole life is a process of learning. And as per the current scenario, one has to be very swift in learning and be prepared to capture one of the next million jobs available. It is no more survival of the fittest, but survival of the fastest. To discuss these aspects in depth, we have with us our very special guest, Mr. Arvind Mehrotra, and we shall be discussing with him on the mantra for creating next million jobs for Indians. Mr. Arvind Mehrotra is a thought leader, strategic advisor, and board advisor, helping mid-sized and startups to develop strategic plans, mitigate risks, develop platform strategies, and scale their business. He is working with Opstram, Buildasoft, Creative Labs, and CloudFX. He is a speaker at financial events, business events, educational events, and technology events. Prior to this, he has been with NIIT Technologies for over a decade and played a key role in the growth of the organization. He held senior leadership positions and was president, IMS, Cloud, Internal IT, GDPR, and Cybersecurity at NIIT Technologies. A very warm welcome to you, sir. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Anshul. It's a pleasure to be on this platform.
Thank you so much. Sir, I'll start off with my first question for the day, please. So as per a recent report from McKinsey, over the decade to 2030, India needs to create at least 90 million new non-farm jobs to absorb the 60 million new workers who will enter the workforce based on the current demographics, and an additional 30 million workers who could move from farm work to more productive non-farm sectors. With the flat employment and the slowing economic growth, what measures would you suggest should be taken for boosting the employment in India, please? Your views on this, sir, please.
Thank you, Anshul. So in my view, I think India has lifted millions out of extreme deprivation by integrating into the global capitalist economy, right? Supplying low-cost goods and services to more advanced countries. The process involved many rural migration to urban migrations. The proliferation of labor-intensive factories got created, and environmental did take an impact because of these rapid changes that the country did. But the eventual result was that there was higher incomes for people, right? And in some places, the emergence of the new middle class, right? We had many tier 2 cities suddenly becoming manufacturing hubs, BPO hubs, or IT hubs, or other services hubs. The challenge of this phenomena is that this middle class does not want to obviously let go of the gains that they've had, right? But the economic market has moved forward. Competition index has changed. And when you're not letting go of the gains, you lead into a phenomena called slow growth, right? And this is talked about also in a different word called secular stagnation by Lawrence Summers, okay, who was the former US Treasury Secretary and is an Harvard economist. Now, while this is happening, it has been exasperated by the fact that the economic value creation of give and get, an economic transaction is about give and get, right? And that creates a value, right, for both the giver and the getter of that service, has been broken by the advent of the digital services, right? This has created a new ecosystem in which government is just a bystander and is not able to generate revenues either through rights, right, by giving rights to perform that activity, or by taxation on transactions. because what is happening is that it becomes a barter system between the giver and the getter, right? And it is traded for free access to apps with unlimited access to your data rights or data monetization. While this is not a fair market value, the citizens or the individuals, be it the individuals or the organizations, right? Because they accepted that transaction, you can't deny that transaction. But the government is letting its citizens, be it individuals or corporates, get exploited because the value creation that these companies enjoy is far greater and disproportionate to the services that these companies give, right? And then they are free to charge these users who promoted these products, right, at a certain point in time, a pricing regime, right? So the government, in my understanding, should first look at how to become relevant in this barter system, right? So in my view, I think there are many few things that the government can do and the enterprises can do, right? And I'll just talk about the first four that hit my mind. So one is that we should ensure that the digital platform, the app companies, pay a tax which are not based in India, right? Which are not headquartered in India, right? Because the companies which are headquartered in India, they obviously will create jobs. Right. And that we should encourage them to do so. But companies which are not based in India, right, are not creating jobs and opportunities in India, we should tax them and get a recovery from them from the growth of their market valuation. So as their market valuation grows, because they have exploited the Indian territory and the Indian resources, when I say resources, it is people, right? Then we must also get a fair exchange, right? So the government should do that. The second, I think the Indian government should look at how do we encourage, right, like in other countries, to build a startup culture. Right? The government is doing lots, but I think there are still many areas that are very gray, and the startups still move to London, to US, or to UK or to Singapore to take advantage of the financial ecosystems that has got developed there, right? The reason that financial ecosystem got developed is because these companies are able to monetize their idea, their data, or their relationships of customers. And those companies are willing to give them money in view of the idea and the data and the long-term value of these propositions. Whereas in India, banks are not able to do that. There are no ecosystems which are able to do that. Some individuals, some startup groups have got created, but that is not good enough, right, to keep this momentum going. And the foreign companies are coming in, investing them, and they do not want to deal with the Indian legal system, are encouraging these companies to register their entities in other markets because they can then take advantage of the legal system and the financial system. The third, I think we were all heard about the attempt of the government, in many governments, successive governments, to privatize some state-owned assets and monetize the economic value by unlocking these assets, by allowing private entrepreneurs or private public partnership, right? Some model by which they can exploit it. The challenge of this is that it is largely seen as an economic transaction, which is not helping the country to grow, right, in creating jobs. So if you would remember when the software parks got created, in view of the land, the companies had to, at a lower cost, they had to promise or create jobs or opportunities around those ecosystems. So should now, when we are hiving off some of these assets, the government should impose a condition on these companies which are acquiring these assets to create a certain set of jobs, a certain volume of jobs,
Right.
and also create certain economic activity around the area, right? Which is measurable, right? In terms of either the tax that is paid from that economic region or the development of that economic region, right? And besides the jobs. Because if we don't do that, we are converting an economic activity which is already generating jobs, which will go to a privatized hand, where the jobs will get curtailed because they will pull in technology, because they will bring in fresh investments and pull in technology and automate a lot of tasks, and many jobs will get lost. Whereas the need for the hour is to create jobs, right? And to develop the economic environment. And lastly, I think we must all recognize that the idea of permanent jobs is disappearing, right? With the concept of gig economy developing. So we need to support this gig economy, right? By building some cushions for the future employees and employers, right? Because this one gig economy employee or employer does outsource many activities, right? He will outsource his legal work, he will outsource his taxation work, he will outsource his branding work, etc., etc. Now, if we don't promote them, the challenge would be that we are not creating many newer opportunities. And the way to do it is that, unfortunately, in the gig economy, because there is no permanency, these people will have assignments or will have lack of assignments in certain periods of time. But these people are paying taxes. They are creating economic value, right? They are doing some economic transactions. So when they are on the downside, right, can the government give them some cushion wherein, based on the amount of taxes that they have paid to the government, these guys can actually withdraw some of that tax that they have paid to be paid back, obviously, so that they can retain their lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right? And they can promote their services much more than needing to plow back and moving away to looking for certainty of a job. So I think if we are able to do that, right, we will be able to develop not only new employers, but these employers will be able to create newer jobs for new employees, right? And create a safety net for the ecosystem.
Wonderful, wonderful, sir. Some very valuable and candid points there. I will take up certain points in detail during the course of the discussion, but let me come down to my second question, please. So, as we were mentioning about the employment, sir, which sectors, according to you, will be the front runners for generating employment in the next decade? Where do you see the major investments happening which will create these jobs? I request your views on this, please.
Okay, so let me take this, let me break this into three parts.
Right.
So first of all, I think we are noticing that there is a labor shortage for tech jobs and customer facing jobs, right? So this is besides the new demand that is going to get generated because the organizations which got disrupted due to COVID-19 will now be taking steps once they come out of COVID-19 to move to online and digital business, okay, or become a digital business. So clearly, I will break this into two parts, the tech jobs and the non-tech jobs. Right. So when I say tech jobs, it's not that the business, the management teams of MBAs cannot do those jobs, but there is a larger bias towards technology, and there is the other jobs which have a lower bias towards technology. But today, every job has an element of tech. So right. we cannot run away from that fact. So the tech jobs which will be in demand will be roles like customer journey mapping or customer journey designers, right? People who can do data analysis, who can do UX, who can look at augmented reality, virtual reality, because that will be a new way of doing things, not only in the industrial learning and training, but also industrial conducting safely those transactions or those jobs. It will be in the area of cybersecurity because data laws are getting tough, right? Data tenancy in the country of origin is becoming critical, or data residency is becoming critical in the whole compliance and governance area. Cloud platforming and low code developers will be the key, but I think one area outside of this will be the whole area of data science. The data that these systems will generate, making meaning out of that data, right? So that is the tech side of it.
Yeah.
The low-tech jobs and the other roles that will be in demand are in the area of digital marketing, right? Are in the area of storytellers and content writers, right? Because when you are, today people have not looked at these platforms being supported by big companies or by large, strong P&Ls, but because they had powerful stories to sell and they could solve certain set of problems, right? There would be obviously operation specialists, okay, because who can work on the digital platforms, can disrupt the business model, right? Can bring in process changes, can also meet compliance and regulation standards. So that will be a big demand. So operational resources, operational capacity, operational leaders will be in great demand going forward. The other is that obviously the area that needs, from an Indian context, needs greater attention and will see investments would be the area of health and safety on one side. Will be also the corporate lawyers' demand around IP management and also doing the job contract management, because more jobs will be on contracts. So you will need a specialist set of players who will protect the IP and also enable a fair trade between the doer of the task versus the payer of the task. Finally, sustainability or environmental issues will take center stage, and COVID-19 has created an opportunity for rejigging the supply chain or developing the logistics chain, or the Atmanirbhar campaign of Government of India will enable that. So that's one area. The second area I think is that what is causing this huge demand or new job creation is because we are now weaving technology into our life of individuals and life of companies, right? With more governments and city administration services, other service providers and corporates all are trying to get into this bandwagon, there will be a lot of data exchange, data management, business or process redesigning or process consultants would be required, right? Or product designers or service management people will be required. In my view, the biggest demand will largely come from ability to create customers. So the customer makers, okay? And in some organizations in the world, in companies which are running large platforms, they've created new roles as customer success managers or client advocates, right? There are different names. But these are people who are multi-skilled, multi-dimensional personalities, right? They have the ability to entice new users to this digital enterprise. They are able to be the production or the product experts. They're able to guide the usage of the product. They are able to train the customers or handhold the customers. They are the marketers. They are the event organizers, right? Of promoting the product within the company once a customer is onboarded with the employees or the people. And they are also the best practice purveyor. So that is the second one, okay? The third, I think we would see a large adoption of technology and devices as we move forward, right? And because of this, what is going to happen is that the companies will be looking at even a small metropolis as an organization, as an ecosystem of where economic transactions are happening seamlessly. Because this will happen, you would need the new urban designers.
Okay.
Okay. You would need urban mechanics to deliver those, to fix those services, right? Once they fail, right? They could be on the energy side, they could be on the water side, they could be on the sanitation side, they could be on the transportation side, many areas, right? But they're all going to come under one ecosystem. There would be education transformers because of the change in way we have experienced it, and education will be disrupted. Outside of this, I think there would be, which I've talked about, that there would be a need to create some digital adopters who will look at digital ideas which are out there, which are successful, of how to you induct them into India with Indian culture and Indian data. So the AI place that you had possibly talked when we were getting ready for this conversation, I think that's the new area that we'll see. So the AI jobs will not about just creating new products around AI, ML, using AI or ML, or using cognitive services, or defining new services, right? Or infusing the current services with AI, ML activity to get a better insight and predictiveness of the service, but also adopting ideas which are successful and localize them with the local data and training those international products with the local data to local culture and local data. Okay. And lastly, I think one would be that we will see some civic innovators coming into place. They may come from as health experts. They may come besides being career health people, but also carers, caregivers, right? There are nucleus families getting created, and people would want in their old ages, right, or even in young ages, some carers for children, for parents, and other things. So there'll be a new demand for them. And I think the biggest opportunity of all is anyone who can humanize the human interaction or the digital interactions, who can humanize the digital interaction, they will be in great demand. So I do not know how to define a label for that. Right. But humanizing digital interaction, I would say, is a bigger opportunity. It's very difficult to measure the size of that opportunity.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think youth entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general would have to listen to this repeatedly, what you have just said, to get the complete crux of the value you have just delivered, sir. So nice of you, sir. And as has been rightly said, that tech companies will eventually displace most of the Fortune 500 companies. I think that was one of the crux I could also get from your talk. So you were mentioning about startups, sir. You said that startups and MSMEs in general are very good storytellers. I would like to ask you, what role would startups and MSMEs play for the economic recovery and to achieve the 5 trillion economy vision of India? What are your views on this, please?
I think first of all, we must understand this whole world is becoming a smaller space than when we visualized it, right? It is contracting. So the opportunity is that you need to look at that there is immense growth potential because of this ecosystem coming together. So this is not going to die. There will be no reversal. Yes, there would be financial distancing will come into place, or economic distancing will come into place, like physical distancing has come because of health issues. There would be countries acting in their own interest, and they will create economic or financial distancing. But nevertheless, if there is a good service getting created somewhere else, there would be the connoisseurs of that service. They will be in remote corners and they will still subscribe to that service. They will still pay a premium for that. So, which means excellence will get premium, right? And so one of the things that I would recommend is that MSMEs and startups focus on excellence in creating excellent services and excellent products, right? Rather than chalta hai product, right? Okay, so that is one part of it. The other part of it is that everyone would want to leverage this dynamic market, this global market. So we've discussed that, you will need to integrate with that changing market, right? So the startup and MSMEs have a easier chance of integrating to those digital supply chains or digital marketplaces or digital ecosystems than a larger company, right? Because they have more to lose than to gain, right? In a smaller context. If I were to break this into your questions of what is the role of SMEs and startups? So let me start with startups. Right. I think the startups should see the current opportunity and convert crisis into an opportunity. Okay. And what do I mean by that is that they should observe the challenges faced by companies during the COVID-19 crisis and learn from that, right? They should identify the problem that they want to solve or the market that they want to disrupt, right? But with their ideas. It should not be a cut and copy and paste idea. It should be their ideas, right? And go the long journey of bootstrapping themselves based on self, family, or crowdfunding. Right. Once the idea is proven, there will be others who will join the bandwagon. But knowing the problem and originality of the idea and having proven the idea will help them to establish their credentials, right? And boutique firms and boutique organizations will always remain critical in any economic system. As far as the MSME is concerned, I think in my mind, they have to increase their competitiveness, right? And thus, I think the first start point would be that they should identify the business capabilities and competencies that they need to revisit, because they have to invest in themselves, right? As COVID-19 would have created the opportunity for all of us, right, to spend time with the family, reach out to friends and forgotten friends and extended friends, and have Zoom calls and Zoom parties, right? So they need to revisit a lot of that capability and competencies on which they were founded, right? Are they relevant today? Are they giving them competitive edge, or has the market changed, right? They can do it themselves, or they can obviously use a set of advisory services or experts, because right now experts and advisors are going to be easily available because of the loss of jobs that is happening, right? So the talent will be easily available at a lower price point. The second is that they will need to think about globalizing their products and services, but localizing their supply chain. Right. They have so far, if I look at MSMEs, especially in India, and it doesn't make me feel good about it, that they have globalized their supply chain and acted locally, right? So, which means that they've never increased their competitiveness. They've surrounded themselves with a smaller and smaller market, but powered by someone else's idea, someone else's product, someone else's services. I think that has to change. So I think entrepreneurs and their teams need to focus as well by improving the safety standards for the high touch processes, be it with suppliers, be it with customers, or be it with the employees, right? And finally, I think they need to automate the low touch processes themselves, and improve the product or service quality and be deterministic about what they are promising rather than promising the moon. So they need to be deterministic about what they're doing rather than just giving a big. So I think storytelling is important because people buy stories, they get emotional about stories, right? People do not get emotional about statistics. People hate statistics because they know the statistics can be turned around in any way. When you are not buying from a larger company, right? You need to know what is endearing, what is emotional, what is contextual, right? So you need to use stories to demonstrate that.
Right. So since we were on the topic of startups, let me ask you a counter question on this, please. So
Yeah.
we've seen billion-dollar unicorn coming out of States, but what is stopping Indian startups to actually reach that pinnacle?
So I think there are 2 or 3 things. As I said, that we need to move away from this whole mindset of cut and paste, right? Which means that you look at a great idea somewhere else and you say, can I localize it, right? Don't take a global supply chain and introduce them, do the reverse. Take the local supply chain and globalize it, right? So it has to be outside in rather than inside out, right? Now, when you are looking at an outside in, you need to, first of all, understand the problems and the patterns, right, that you can address. You may start with a local market, prove the idea in a local market, okay, and then expand it. So I think in India, it is not that Indians did not produce unicorns, right? Those companies got funded by Japanese firms, Chinese firms, British, UK firms, or American firms, or other investors. We've not found risk takers in India, right? And as I said, the step has to be because IP in India is not well protected, right? And it takes too much time to create, to chase and protect your IP, and that's the fear. And that is why there is a flight of talent outside and flight of ideas outside, because those IPs and companies get registered abroad and they get recognized and they get protected. So as I said, the government has to do some changes in this area. I know CII and my ex-boss Arvind Thakur is championing this cause very much, but more needs to be done.
So let me come down to my next question, please.
Yeah, sure.
Recently, the new education policy was released by Government of India, and it emphasized on the skill development among students. How do you think should our education system upgrade itself and train its students with the emerging job in the employment trends? I request your views on this, please.
Let me start very little differently in my mind. I think as economists have put out this position that the occupational structure is shaped by the factors such as structure of the economy, the technology, the bureaucracy, the labor market, and the status and the prestige associated in the market. So changes in occupational structure are explicit during any social or economic development. Okay. So if you see in today's economic development or social context, the TikTok user community has become very big, right? Now TikTok is banned. So they would move to Chingaris, or I do not know what other platforms. I have never used those, but I read about them, so I can at least remember 1 or 2 names. The problem of this development is that it is creating new occupations and disappearance of others because of these new rules and regulations. Now, the challenge of the educational system is that the educational system can serve this economy, right? how the economy will play out, it is very difficult for the educationist and the education policy makers to determine. Okay. So this is one takeaway that I think we should look at. And the other bigger challenge is that the nature of work is getting disrupted and future jobs are getting defined. Future work practices are getting defined, right? As we discuss, and that economic development will continue to happen. So I feel quite, while everyone talks of the outdated model of education and we have a new education policy in place, I feel intrigued for two reasons. One is the education going forward will, as I said, will not be able to predict the job, right? That will exist. They cannot guarantee. So even if they train people for jobs, they cannot guarantee those jobs will exist, right? In the volumes that you may train the people for. But certainly what education system can do is help develop knowledge, skills, and abilities, right? Which will be required for the future. Okay. And if our education system focuses on that, I think it will do a great human service for everyone.
Very true.
So one big change that I'm sure you realize it, at least I realize it, is that in our lifetime now, the students have access to a huge set of information and resources. But in my time, when I started my career, I did not have access to this unfettered access or unfettered access to the information, right? We had to, if we had a problem in mind or asked to do some analysis or do some research, we had to then take the problem and sit down and say, okay, how would we build a research plan? What should be the next steps? Where should be the sources? How should we get the sources of information? Then define which libraries, which sources of information we would tap. Then look at within whatever the smallest content that we got, exploit it to the fullest.
Correct.
Right? And then, but develop our ideas based on that and give recommendations of our understanding of the problem or our possible solutions based on that. So fundamentally, what was happening is that because we were dealing with fewer information sources and fewer resources, we were frugal and we were maximizing the potential of that, right? However, the current graduating students, right, have little appreciation for the vastness of resources that they have access to. Right. Secondly, I think they need to develop a well-structured research strategy. Okay. And they can do a far better job than us because they're more dexterous. They have access to technology. They understand technology better. Right. They're electronically more savvy. Right. But they need to spend more time in building their appreciation of the problem or the topic under discussion, and allowing a conversation within groups, right? And not just live in their own island, because digital ecosystems have also created these echo chambers for ourselves, right? We shut down ideas that we don't like, where we don't feel good about it, right? So we shut that noise out. So I think they will need to use this context a little better. But I think one area that I would want them to do some independent research is the jobs that they want to pursue or the industry that they want to work in. Can they start identifying and understanding few things? One is, what are the capabilities required to perform the role, right? What data elements would they need to touch base with? So what is the information set that they will be required to understand to perform a quality job in a well-defined, quantified time? Second is understand how to harness and report the same data, right, about the task completeness or task progress. Okay. Thirdly, they must understand the constraints imposed by it, by the job. So what are the boundaries of the job? So we all had to learn about our jobs and about our industries once we went into the job,
Right.
right? And it took us many, many years to understand that fully till we had traversed the path. These people have that opportunity, resources to understand this better, right? Lastly, I think they must also understand that they must develop a behavioral skill of saying, how can I share an idea? How can I express my point of view, right? And they could look it around, not too big ideas, very small ideas around how to improve an execution of a task, right? How to improve the velocity of a system, right? Which is introducing agility in a very different way, right? And obviously, what can be done to improve the quality of the task, right? So I think my recommendation would be that the graduating students need to address this whole ambiguous situation with a mindset that they can work in a constrained environment, right? They can leverage the information resources. They can develop a research or an analytical or an investigative or a critical thinking mindset or algorithm for themselves, which is unique to them and their personalities, right? Which people can't take away from them. And that creates a distinct capability that they need, okay? Finally, I think the World Economic Forum has anyway said that the jobs, the top 10 skills that are required in the future are about analytical thinking. They're about innovation like active learning and learning strategies. They're about originality and initiative. They're about complex problem solving. They're about leadership and social influence, right? And the big news is that this demand is large and the gap is widening because there is not enough talent which is addressing that or preparing themselves for that. But there is this book of Nate Silver's book called The Signal and the Noise, where I think the advice was that students, instead of cramming information, since they have the information tap under their control, so they need to develop skills like curiosity, communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thought, because these will help them to deal with the uncertain market.
True, true. I really appreciate the point, sir, when you mentioned that education has to be coupled with knowledge and decoupled with employment. So current mindset of Indians is that I am educating my son or my daughter for a piece of paper that is called a degree here. That mindset has to go. Since, as you already mentioned, that we are coming out of the phase wherein we had all these permanent job idea mindset. Now there would be freelance jobs, more of temporary jobs. So we have to prepare them ourselves accordingly. Wonderful, sir, right? So lastly, sir, I would request your advice and tips to our youth for navigating through these challenging times, please.
We've discussed many, but let me try to summarize it.
Right.
I think that we all believe, right, that the economic activity is low and the new employment opportunities have got paused, right? I think the reason for pause is getting accentuated because of the uncertainty in the short-term view that both the industry and the governments have on the current environment. Okay. So I would say that the students should prepare themselves to be adaptable and flexible, know how to manage ambiguity and collaboration, right? Because the power of dealing with ambiguity and engaging in a collaborative work really will clear up the dark clouds in people's mind. I think they will also need to, I think we all would have personal experiences during COVID-19 where a lot of young students and graduating students would have tried to become the digital assistant in the house or digital enabler of services in the house, be it getting milk from an app, be it getting fruits and vegetables or medicines or whatever, helping grandparents, parents, and as many as people, neighbors to help them. I think one thing that they would have learned is that they became supportive during this period. They became empathy driven, right? And they became enablers, right? Be it for the colleagues, family, customers, and they became true collaborators, right? I think they should harness the skill. They should not let the skill die. I think the one thing that students should continue to do is that they should take their internships and training periods very seriously.
Right.
Because most of the people think it is a fun job. It is fun, but if you are coming out of the same education system, you are being guided by the same set of professors, you had access to the same set of courseware, the same set of ideas. What distincts you between you and the other is the project work that you've done, or the internship work that you've done, or the industries that you have worked in. So, and I think they can improve that by volunteering to help with local association, right? Do short-term contracts, right? And this will help them in the future, right? But as I said, employers will always value students who can demonstrate resilience, flexibility, and the get up and go attitude during this period of time. And some, I think the largely one key skill that they need to develop is become a people's person so that they can solve real life problems. So that's how I would end my communication.
So being a people's person is the mantra coming out from Mr. Mehrotra. Thank you, sir, for taking out time and speaking to us today and sharing your ideas through your vast experience and wisdom with us. I'm sure your advice would be very, very beneficial for the youth and would motivate them to reach the pinnacle of success. With this, we will wrap up the session. And once again, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here.